Hello everyone. This short video is going to introduce you to some common assessments we use in training and strength and conditioning. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So what's the purpose of performance assessments? Well, it allows us to create a baseline. It's hard to run a race if you don't know where the starting line is. So we want to get an idea of where someone's level of performance is so that when we do design training programs for these folks and athletes, we can get an idea of what needs to go into those training programs based on what they're capable of right now. And assessments also act as a measurement system to get an understanding of the efficacy of a training program or the effect of your training programs. Are your training programs working? Are they doing what you're trying to design them to do? If you are working with a basketball player, are they jumping higher? Are they faster? If you're designing your training program to meet those goals and those things aren't happening, then you need to readjust the layout of your training and some of the exercises you're doing. And the best way to know if you're being successful is to test someone before you do a training program, design the training program, then test them along the way as well to see if those things are improving. And also, gameplay and competition are their own assessments as well. So, there are many types of assessments. These are just a few. These are the assessments that categories that we are going to learn about in this class. The type of assessment needs to match the overall goal for the person that's being trained, and that goes back to our basic training principles, specificity, right? We need, if we are trying to train someone to be a long distance runner, then our assessments that we choose, our tests that we choose, need to match that goal. So obviously, like a mile run or a 2 mile run, or any other type of long endurance cardiovascular fitness focused assessment will work well for that type of athlete, right? You want to make sure you pick assessments that match your goal. So cardiovascular fitness, muscular endurance, lower body explosiveness, and total body strength are all very specific categories. And depending on the athlete, you may have a lot of overlap there. You may have an athlete that needs muscular endurance and lower body explosiveness. So you're going to include assessments for both of those. So our first assessment that we are going to learn about is the YMCA STEP test. And I will edit this real quick. It's a 3-minute YMCA STEP test. This test is specific to cardiovascular fitness. It uses heart rate recovery to get us an estimate of someone's cardiovascular fitness. So you will have a metronome set at 96 beats per minute, which sounds like this. Give me 1 second, I'll turn on my metronome. And we will learn in class how you set someone up to step to the beat of this metronome. And so someone will step to the beat of the metronome for 3 minutes, and then they will immediately sit down. And within 5 seconds of completing the test, you start taking heart rate. And you're going to take the heart rate for 60 seconds, and you're going to see what their heart rate recovers to in that 60 seconds. And then you're going to compare that heart rate that you get to our chart here, right? So the 3-minute YMCA step test is a great measure for cardiovascular fitness. Having to step up and down with your full body weight really does crank up your heart rate a little bit, and it's going to get you a good idea of how quickly your heart rate will recover after that type of exercise. Okay, so our next assessment, the hand grip dynamometer test. You will want to practice that word, dynamometer. It's a fun word, but sometimes it's easy to mispronounce the word. Dyna meaning moving or dynamic, and mometer, or particularly the meter part of the word, meaning to measure. So we're using a piece of equipment. The dynamometer is something that has movement to it, and it allows us to measure that movement. And what we're doing is we're using the hand grip dynamometer to measure our hand grip strength. Okay, so we have various types of hand grip dynamometers. In our lab, they all do the exact same thing. We have electronic and we have manual dynamometers. You'll learn how to use them all, and you'll get to choose which one you like the best. And so what happens with the assessment is we have someone squeeze the dynamometer for 3 seconds as hard as they can in their right hand. Then they switch it over to the left hand. And they squeeze as hard as they can. Then they switch back to the right hand. Then they switch back to the left hand. They're getting really, really hard squeezes, as hard as they possibly can. You're taking these measurements when they're doing these squeezes, and at the end you take their best hand grip scores from the right and the left, you add them together, and you check out how they did in this chart here. And so one of the things with the hand grip dynamometer test that we'll talk about in class is really motivating the individual to squeeze as hard as they can. This is a measure of total body strength. You're thinking, well, wait a minute, we're just testing the hands. But if you think about it, if you are stronger, you are able to what? Lift more weight. And if you are able to lift more weight, then generally you're using your hands, and you're going to be able to have a stronger grip strength. So the hand grip dynamometer test has been around for a really long time, and it's an easy way to get an estimate of someone's total body strength. Our next test is the YMCA bench press test. This is an upper body muscular endurance test, and we are once again using a metronome to guide the exerciser. And it sounds like this. It's much slower. It's 60 beats per minute, and the exerciser will lower on one beat and raise the bar on the next beat. And the exerciser will continue to do this until they can't stay with the beat, or they fail on being able to get the bar up. And there is the administrator of the test, excuse me, will be shadowing and spotting the entire time. And so the measure for this test for success is the number of reps that you complete. And you have a chart down here where we can look at the number of reps someone has completed in their age group to get an idea of how successful they were. And our last assessment that we're going to learn about in class is the vertical jump for lower body power. The vertical jump is the most complicated assessment that we're going to learn about, particularly because we use a very special piece of equipment called the Vertec, which allows us to very accurately measure someone's vertical jump. Your vertical is your standing reach height. You get someone's standing reach height and you subtract that from how high they jump. So you can see over here, Andrew Luck, the former quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts here, he's doing a vertical jump, and so he's going to get really high in the air and touch the slats on the vertical, the Vertec, and they're going to take that measurement, they're going to subtract his standing reach height, or how high he can reach his hand in the air with flat feet, and that's what's called his vertical. And you're going to learn how to do that. You're going to learn how to use the Vertec. You're going to learn what the different colored slats on the Vertec mean. There's white, there's red, there's blue, and they all have different measurements. And once you get somebody's vertical, you are going to look in the chart and see how they did, depending on how high they got. And one of the things to note about this vertical jump is there are a couple different types of vertical jump tests. One of them is taking a step when you go into a jump, and one of them is the one you're seeing here, where we're just doing a counter movement. We have square stance, throwing our arms down and up and getting as high as we can. And that is the type of vertical jump test we're doing, a simple counter movement jump with square stance. We are not taking a step. Now, this video that I just ran for you on those PowerPoint slides is just a really quick review of the assessments that we're going to do, a brief introduction. Your job is to make sure you access the assessments in strength and conditioning document and read the details about how to administer these assessments. You can see that the details are a lot more extensive than what I've gone over on the PowerPoint slides. So that is your job now, to read over the instructions and make sure you're very familiar, particularly with this vertical jump test. You can see there's a lot of instructions involved, because when we get to our practical exam, you are going to be responsible for knowing how to run these tests all by yourself in detail and understanding how to interpret them. And that is what you're going to be scored on. Knowing what the equipment is called, knowing how to use it, knowing how to communicate to the exerciser, and knowing how to interpret their scores quickly. You'll be able to use your notes, but you need to be able to reference those and get an understanding of the exerciser's performance on those assessments in a good amount of time. So that is an introduction to the assessments we're going to learn in class. If you have any questions, please let me know.